People often talk about the light at the end of the tunnel, but the truth is there's also a light, a hope, a faith at the beginning of the tunnel. At the beginning of the tunnel of Jewish history, even prior to the Jewish people leaving Egypt, the night before their departure, they observed the very first Passover Seder. And within the confines of Egypt, they sat down to celebrate their imminent redemption. And at that very first Passover Seder, God instructed the Jewish people to eat the matzah, the bread of affliction, and the maror, the bitter herbs, to remember the bitter experience in Egypt. And the question is, if they're still experiencing Egypt, why would they have to eat the bitter herbs and the matzah, the bread of affliction? Imagine Jews in the concentration camps prior to the liberation from Auschwitz or Dachau or Bergen-Belsen, sitting down to a meal and having a commemoration of the suffering in the concentration camps. They're still in the camps. They don't need a commemoration. And the answer is that the Jewish people were displaying enormous faith and trust in God. That even though at this very moment we're still enslaved, we know that tomorrow we're going free. And this ritual of eating the matzah, the bread of affliction, and the maror, the bitter herbs, will be a commemoration for generations, for thousands of years, until today, 3,333 years after the redemption, that we will look back and remember the suffering and learn its lessons, having been freed from the shackles of slavery. And that is the faith, the trust in God, the optimism, the hope, the light at the beginning of the tunnel of Jewish history. And it's that hope and faith and conviction that we will go free. And this bread of affliction will turn into the bread of redemption. And that the memory of the bitterness will only enhance the sweetness of life after we go free and experience the contrast between the bitter times in Egypt and the freedom of the exodus from Egypt. It is that faith in the future and that hope and that optimism that enabled the Jewish people to go free, and remains as a lesson to all of us today, that we do not have to wait until we are emancipated, until we are freed from our struggles, from our challenges. But even within the struggles, within the hardship, we could have so much trust and faith that we could already taste the taste of freedom and liberation. I tell a story about this king who had a very faithful and loyal advisor. And this advisor, no matter what happened in life, would always say, Gam Zula Tova, this is also for the best. Whether good or bad, he always had faith that it's for the best. And one day the king was out hunting with this advisor, and accidentally the advisor shot his rifle and blew off one of the fingers of the king. The king was furious, his finger was blown off. But this advisor said, everything is for the best. The king was so angry. How dare you say it's for the best? You blew off my finger. And he had him thrown into a prison cell, into a dungeon. 10 years later, the king was out hunting again, and he was captured by cannibals. And they took him to prepare him for their meal, when they noticed that he was missing a finger. And cannibals do not eat any human being that isn't complete and perfect. If they have a blemish, they won't eat them. So they released the king. And they said, we cannot eat you because you have a blemish, you're missing a finger. The king remembered the words of the advisor, this too is for the best. And he went running to the cell, to the dungeon. And he said, I beg your forgiveness for having imprisoned you for 10 years. You were right, it was for the best, because indeed, I was captured by cannibals, and had I not been missing my finger, I wouldn't be alive today. And I beg your forgiveness for having left you in this dungeon cell for 10 years. To which the advisor said, it's okay, you don't have to ask for forgiveness. This too is for the best, the fact that I was in prison for all these years. And the king said, are you mad? Are you insane? How could you say it's for the best? And the advisor said, obviously it was for the best. Because had I not been imprisoned, I would have been with you on this hunting trip. And when the cannibals realized that they cannot eat you, they would have eaten me. So thank God I was in prison. This mindset of Gam Zula Tova, that no matter what we go through in life, we have faith and trust that it's all for the best, allows us, even within the struggles of life, to be able to already taste the freedom, the joy, the liberation. And by doing that, we can be present in every moment of life. We don't have to escape. We can recognize that there is a challenge, but there is an opportunity within this very moment. Fantasy is escaping reality. Faith is confronting reality with courage and trust. Have a wonderful day and Chag Sameach.